Back here, WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station, 215-204-9449 is the number if you want to call and hang with us. And now joining me is SNY analyst and former Rutgers QB, Ray Lucas. Ray, Zach Gelb here, Temple Sports Hour. How are you?
Hey, Zach, what's going on, brother?
Nothing much. I'm doing great. I actually called you right before we had you on, and I heard some funky playback music. What is that on your ringtone? I like that.
It's cool like that. It's the Digital Planets from back in the day.
Now, I was at Radio Row, and I was hearing all the stuff you were saying, and you've gone through some rough times with your incident on the GW Bridge and the painkillers. I just want to know, how are you post your career in the NFL right now?
I am doing fantastic. I've had 2 extra neck surgeries since the Super Bowl. I had some problems, coming down from the neck, but feeling good, pain every day, but living day one at a time.
And it's real unfortunate when you see one of your fellow brothers in the NFL, like Junior Seau, take his life. And you were going through some rough times, like you mentioned. How did you fight through those times, and how did you not end up like Junior Seau? Because I remember meeting Junior Seau, and you couldn't have a nicer guy. You could never tell that there was any rough times going on in his life.
Well, if it wasn't for the group called PASS, it's a group that takes care of former NFL players with no insurance. They came in, they got me the surgery I need. I got a 3-inch steel plate with 6 screws put in my neck, sent me to rehab. And, when you go to rehab, it was a necessary evil because, when you're taking 800 painkillers a month, I'm not an idiot. I knew that there were going to be some other repercussions that would come from, taking the pills. I went to rehab for 42 days. I came out, and I have the tools to make sure that I don't reach back. I mean, I'm going to be in pain for the rest of my life. But at the same token, I'm knowledgeable of, the disease. It does try to play tricks on you. I can't say that some days when I'm in a lot of pain that, my mind doesn't tell me, hey, you haven't taken something in a long time. You could take a couple. But the fact that I know and I'm ready for, those kind of things that come up, that, I have, like I said, the tools in my belt to make sure that I stay clean. Almost coming up on 2 years pretty soon in January.
Well, congratulations. That's great stuff. It's always, you were going around Radio Row smiling, promoting your cause, and I really love the passion that you had behind this issue, and it's great to hear that you're doing all right. But what is your advice to players that this is their last year in the NFL? How do they get ready for retirement?
Well, I think this is part of the NFL's problem. There's no exit strategy. There's no saying that you're the guy everybody knows, and then when you leave the NFL, it's like, you fall off the face of the planet. I mean, there has to be an exit strategy. Maybe something put out for, guys to go back to work, because let's face it, there's only 3, 4, or 5 guys on the team that make over $5 million, $10 million that won't have to go to work. You figure that you're going to play forever like I did, and, when you get injuries, you go out into the world, and, you're still living the lifestyle of, a guy who's making, big checks every 2 weeks, and it's not the case. For me, I would tell everybody, listen, just remember the name PASS. If we have a website up, if you start, coming into problems and your, physical part of your body is failing, that there's a group out there that will take care of you pro bono, or even if you have insurance, we got a team of about 9 doctors who go from an internist to orthopedic to psychological. They take care of your mind, body, and soul. I mean, because if you look at it as, athletes are a little different, made up a different way. You can't just treat the pain. You also have to treat the head. You also have to treat the depression and all the stuff that comes. So PASS is a place that, I'm working at now, and when players come in, I'm their guy that gives them the orientation and tells them, look, this is how you can be. And I think that's, very important. So, I mean, yes, definitely they're going to have problems, but at least they know what to look for and where to go. So it's a great thing.
During the lockout, I suggested that there should be a system in place to help you older guys out in the game, because we've heard so many unfortunate situations, like what happened to Mike Webster, a former NFL player for the Steelers, an all-time great player who died homeless on a street. What is it going to take for these players to finally go out there and donate some money to the older guys, the guys that really played their dues to the game, like yourself?
Well, like for me, I just look at it this way. I mean, I was part of the $10 billion machine for 8 years, and yeah, I wasn't Peyton Manning or anything like that, but you still made money off of my back. And the fact that you throw us out to the wolves, and then, all these injuries we occurred during playing football, and, nobody wants to help you. There's no program out there that helps you get surgery, or, it's not right. And, I think that now there's a lot more voices speaking out, not just myself. A lot of players are coming out, and like you mentioned, Junior Seau. I mean, it's a tragedy. I mean, this guy was the NFL, a 20-year player.
And he was great off the field as well. As great as he was on the field, he was better off the field.
Unbelievable with his charity work and stuff like that. And it's a real shame that it has to come down to that. A person taking his life for people to start paying attention. And it's sad. And there's a lot more guys out there. That's why I don't care. I tell my story, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm an addict, and I wear that, tag proud because I'm a survivor. And I'm one of the few. And there's a lot of guys out there that are suffering in silence, and that bothers me. And it should bother a lot of people. And I tell people, everybody sees Sundays. Nobody sees Mondays. Nobody knows what we go through. Or, you can't take your head off the pillow on Monday morning. I mean, it's a real thing out there. And I see, people doing concussion commercials and stuff like that. But for me, how much does that cost? $3 million? I know 5 guys that come into pass that could use that kind of money to help them in their daily activities where they can't even function. So, I think there's maybe some steps being forward, but it's still not out to where people realize it. And if people really knew what goes on, it would be sick to their stomach.
Are you in support of the commissioner with everything that's going on with Bountygate and the plethora of fines that we see each and every week?
You know what? Like I said, I don't do the political game. I'm not going to bash. But to be totally honest with you, yeah, I do have a problem with it. I mean, we're held to a high standard during when we play, and we abide by the rules. And then once we're done playing football, there's no rules out there to say, well, listen, this guy hasn't worked in 10 years, and he's almost out on the street. This guy has some serious psychological problems. If you don't take care of him, he's going to kill himself. I mean, these are the things that really, really bother me when it comes to the NFL. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love to play the game, and I miss it every single day. Every single day. And if they said, Ray, you have to go through your 13 surgeries, but you can go back and play one play, I would go back in a second. The game was life and was, my love. And for the fact that I did it for 8 years, and after when I started getting, pain and stuff, that there was no program out there and no help-wise to get me healthy or get me the surgery, that's a problem. And I think people need to wake up and take a look because, we don't need another Junior Seau. We don't need that. This guy put his heart and soul into 20 years of playing in the NFL, and for him to have to come to taking his life, it's a tragedy.
Zach Gelb here, WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station, talking to Ray Lucas. Rutgers Temple this Saturday, 12 o'clock at the Link, a battle of the Big East powerhouses. And describe the job that first-year head coach Kyle Flood has done as a Rutgers alumni.
Well, I mean, it's a whole different style of coaching, just number one. I mean, I know Greg a long time, and his way was, the only way. I think Kyle Flood has done something different where he's letting his coaches coach, and he's keeping the players grounded. And me personally, I know him, and, you root for a guy like this. And I think that the players are responding to his technique, and it's helping us to come out to 6-0 so far. So Kyle Flood is a whole different, completely different way of teaching, a completely different way of coaching, and I think the players are responding to it.
They're undefeated halfway through the season. Do you think this team could run the table?
We could if we play our football. I mean, we're a complete, university because we have special teams, which is outstanding. Our defense is probably the fastest I've seen since I played, and we got a quarterback who keeps getting better every single day.
How do you stay focused as a player? Because it's so easy to buy into the hype. You hear all the national media's out there, number 15th ranked Rutgers. Can they run the table? Will they run the table? As a player, how do you stay focused and really focusing on this Temple team coming in this week?
Well, the only way when I did it was I never read the press clipping. I was never one that wanted to pat on the back. I mean, you're only good as what you've done lately, and that game has passed. There's a new challenge on Saturday at 12 o'clock in Philadelphia that is just as important as the last 6 games you played. I think that's another thing that Kyle Flood does is keep the kids' heads out of the air, and there's a lot of people, especially at the Arkansas game, that were saying, oh, Rutgers is for real and this and that and the other thing, but it only takes one ball, Zach, and then, all that pats on the back and everybody goes away. So, I think it's focus on the task at hand, and I think Kyle Flood does a great job of making that players understand that.
We're talking to Ray Lucas, and Ray, the quarterback for the Temple Owls, Chris Coyer, he isn't consistent, but he's very tough to prepare against because he'll throw some blocks, he'll run the football, and he can also throw the football to his big tight end in Cody Booth. From a defensive standpoint, because you were a player that did more than just a typical pocket passing quarterback, you also played on special teams, you ran the football. How do you prepare for more than the typical quarterback, which what Rutgers has coming up this week with Chris Coyer?
Well, with Chris, it's hard. Because if you rush too far up the field, you give him a crack, he'll take off running. He's a great pocket passer. He's got that presence in him to know where the rush is coming from, and that's not something you could teach a quarterback. He's just got that feeling. What I think is going to have to happen is we're going to have to definitely come up and make him uncomfortable in the pocket. We're going to have to move him off that spot, but we're going to have somebody probably spy one of the linebackers just to make sure that when he gets out that we have somebody there to tackle him.
And your defense has been phenomenal this year, led by Kashim Green, former Big East Defensive Player of the Year. How does this defense expect to contain Montel Harris coming over from the ACC from Boston College, now playing with Temple? He's been a stud so far this year.
Well, Kashim Green this is a guy who's going to be playing on Sunday. Playing it simple. Move from strong safety to linebacker, which a couple of years ago I was like, I can't believe this kid could be a first-round draft pick for a safety, and he's done nothing but amaze me. Physical prowess, never mind his quickness and stuff like that. But the whole team defense as a whole is extremely fast. Scott Malone, a guy who is that defensive line mainstay, is just as fast and just as athletic. And they cause problems up front for offensive lines because they can't get to the second level. And when linemen don't get to the second level, it's hard for one of those running backs to find a hole because those linebackers running free, and I think that is the bread and butter of the Scarlet Knight defense.
Two more as we're talking to Ray Lucas, WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station. Zach Gelb here with you on Temple Sports Hour. Gary Nova has done a complete 180 this year. He's made a lot of improvements in the offseason. I know Rutgers' bread and butter is running the football, but Temple secondary, they've been decimated with injuries. Can we expect Nova to throw the ball a little bit more this week?
I don't know. If it comes down to throwing the football, like you said, Gary Nova has impressed me more than anyone on the Scarlet Knight roster. If you look at what he did last year, trying to force some balls into places where he's not, and when you have a strong arm, as a quarterback, you think you can make it into those small windows. This year, he's not doing that. He's making sure that his player, his receiver, his tight end, his running back gets it, and nobody gets it. But like I said before, you're probably going to see a really strong dose of Jawan Jamison on Saturday. Are
you making the trip to the link? Will you be there come Saturday at 12 o'clock?
Absolutely. I do all the Rutgers games on the radio, so I'll definitely be out there.
Oh, really? Do you do it with Carlin?
Yep.
Oh, okay, so I'll definitely see you out there. We just had Chris on the show right before you. I didn't know that about yourself, but I'll see you up in the press box.
I'm a mater, baby. I got to stay tight. I got to be there.
All right. Well, Ray, thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it. Let's get you on again real soon, and enjoy the Patriot Jet game this week. Although I am from New York, I am a Pats fan, so hopefully the Pats get the victory this week.
I don't even want to talk about that.
Ray, have a great day. I appreciate
it.
Jack,
take it easy.